Hey guys, it's Kelly here again and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another bookish related video. Recently there have been quite a few new releases that have sparked my interest, and I managed to get my hands on a couple of audiobooks. So here today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on some of them and whether they are worth the wait and worth the hype. All of the books that I'm going to be sharing with you are either sci-fi or fantasy because that is predominantly what I read, so if you're interested, just keep watching. Most of them were published in 2022, some of them were published in 2021, but I still consider them newish, so I wanted to include them in this video. Today I'll be talking about 6 books, I believe, and I'm going to start off with the Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. This is a fantasy book, or more like magical realism book, that is also a mystery, and it follows a character who is a cartographer. Cartography has always been her hobby, her passion, and for years she has worked in the field. She started off with her father, but after an unfortunate incident with a garbage map, I guess is what we'll call it, her career kind of plummeted and her dad kind of pushed her out of the cartography world. So we follow her as she finds out that her father has died under certain mysterious circumstances, and it turns out that it had something to do with the certain trash map that got her fired some years ago. From there, she starts to try and figure out exactly what happened. The map turns out to be a lot more special than she thought, and there's a lot of people from her father and her mother's past that have something to do with it. This was a great book. I really enjoyed it. I believe I gave it 4 stars, but it's more like a 3.5, 4. It's more magical realism rather than fantasy, and also I don't consider it much of a mystery just because it was a very simple mystery and absolutely everything you can guess from the very beginning. There's only one thing that kind of shocked me, but it was very relevant to the story, so, you know, it doesn't really matter. Personally, I really enjoyed the audiobook. There's multiple cast members that represent the different characters, so you can definitely follow along without getting confused who's who and what they do. And you have a very streamlined mystery. You follow different characters while they try to figure out the different mysteries. You get clues here and there. It's a good book. It's definitely not something mind-blowing. I managed to guess all of the mysterious parts kind of from the get-go, so if you're going into it in terms of it being a mystery, then you'll probably get disappointed. But if you're looking for a story about found family and friendships and mysterious maps, then I think that you would enjoy this. The next one I'm going to talk about is a adult sci-fi. It's called Activation Degradation, and it follows a biological robot as they're woken up kind of in a crisis. They struggle to figure out exactly what's going on. The mine in which they're working in is being attacked by aliens, invaders, and its human who is trying to control it is telling it what to do, and it's not quite sure that it's the right thing to do. So after the attack, the robot Unit 4 decides to follow the invaders and try to either defeat them or at least bring some more information to its handler about who they are, what they want, and why they attacked the mine. As it reaches the invaders, though, it turns out that it's not exactly the information that it was given. Things are different. It struggles to understand exactly what's going on, and it boards the ship as a prisoner and starts to figure out exactly what is going on and who the invaders really are and what is the future, the past, and the present of humanity. This was an amazing book. I really loved it. It's really interesting being in Unit 4's head and trying to piece the things and the information that it has together with it. And also there's a lot of things that you don't know are going on. You're not really sure yourself exactly what happened and what led to humanity being in the situation that they are, and what led to the creation of Unit 4 as well and its unit sisters. And there's also like a little bit of a romance. It wasn't like the main point of the story, but the really cool part was that while you have this little hint of romance, you also get to explore the unit trying to figure out its emotions and how it feels and how, to be human, I guess. And that was a really interesting thing to read about. Sorry, my phone just went off. Next up, I have Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and I really did not expect to love this book as much as I did. I absolutely adored it. I'm not sure if this is categorized as middle grade or YA. It definitely read a little bit younger because the character is a little bit younger as well. However, it's very creepy and it has a lot of horror type vibes, so I definitely don't think it's middle grade. And it was really, really great. I loved it so much. I really didn't think that I would, and I highly, highly recommend that you listen to the audiobook because I think it was so well done. It was so creepy. I was listening to it late at night and I kept jumping up because of weird noises, and it completely creeped me out. So I definitely recommend the audiobook for this. Even though the physical book is gorgeous, I've been seeing it all around Instagram, and I think it's one of the most beautiful new releases to date. So even though it's really beautiful, I definitely recommend trying the audiobook as well. I don't think I actually said what the book was about. So Gallant follows a little girl who has grown up in a school for young girls. She was abandoned from her family, and she just dreams of leaving all of the other girls and leaving the home and becoming her own person, when suddenly in the home there's a letter for her written by her uncle, who is inviting her to come back to their mansion, Gallant, and rejoin their family. Upon arriving in Gallant, however, it turns out that she wasn't wanted there. Her uncle never sent a letter. People in the mansion are acting very strange. She's not sure why. There's very weird things going on. She can kind of see ghosts and ghouls, and things are lurking in the shadows that she's not sure how to deal with and what exactly they represent. I think I've read 2 or 3 of Victoria Schwab's books this far. However, I have read the translations, so I can't exactly say for certain, but I think that this was the best written book that she's come out with so far. It was so atmospheric. It flowed so well. It was just so well written, and it was beautiful, and it was extremely creepy and unnerving. So I highly, highly recommend this. This is definitely gonna be one of my best from this year. Next up is The First Sister by Lyndon Lewis, and this is not the newest release, but I still include it here because I haven't seen it much anywhere on Book Talk or Bookstagram, so I decided to share my thoughts here in this video. So this is an epic sci-fi, and it's very sci-fi forward. However, it reads very much like an epic fantasy. So I think that readers of fantasy and epic fantasy would really enjoy this because there's almost a magic system. It's technological, but it kind of reads like a magic system. And there's a very intriguing political system. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of races, I guess, and I think that high fantasy readers would really enjoy this one. Personally, I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars. About the audiobook, it's multicast again, and you can always tell who you're listening to. However, because the world is so expansive and there's so much that goes on politically and geopolitically, I guess, even though it's kind of in the stars and in space, so I don't think it's geopolitics at this point. Yeah, okay, let's go with astral politics. So there's a lot of things. That go on, and it's one of those books that the more you keep reading, the more confused you can start to get. But as long as you pay attention, I think it's and I think reading it physically would probably be a better way to go because you can kind of reference and go back. And yeah, I was lost at a few places, but just because there's these 2 races that are kind of similarly described, and I wasn't sure, they have the same names and I wasn't sure which one is which, and I kept confusing them. However, the main characters and their plots were obvious, they were straightforward, you didn't get confused there at all. It was a good book. It follows a few characters. One of the characters that you follow is called a First Sister. She is part of a high religion that involves all of the solar system. They are kind of like a nun coven. However, they're not nuns. They're kind of like religious prostitutes, I guess. So people use them and their bodies for everything and anything that you can imagine. And there's also praying to their deities, or was it just the one deity? I am not explaining this well at all. So you follow this first sister, and she is one of the main religious figures on a spaceship. She is close to the captain, and in the beginning of the book she is kind of stranded without friends and without a position with a new captain. So her task is to spy on the new captain, get close to them, and figure out some information that she can pull out. They're not allowed to speak. They can only communicate with nods, and between themselves, the sisters, they can communicate with sign language. I thought it was interesting because before I read First Sister, I listened to Gallant, which also the main character there also cannot speak, so she also communicates with sign language. So if you're looking for a representation for a non-vocal character, I think these two books are good for that. So for in First Sister, she is tasked to spy on her captain, and in the meanwhile, we follow another character who is a soldier, and he was part of a duo, but his partner has deflected and they're a traitor now. So as he goes deeper and deeper into his mission, he starts to question whether this mission is right, whether his ex-partner didn't know something more that maybe is the reason why they choose a different side. And also here and there we get snippets of his ex-partner's diaries, and he's explaining basically how they got to the point where they decided to choose a different side. So this was a really interesting but also kind of a hard book. I would think that reading it physically would be better than listening to it as an audiobook, just because even though it had multiple cast members and you can never get confused about who's talking, you get a little bit confused with the events and some of the races. However, the plot was really interesting and the way that things were going was really interesting, and I'm definitely going to continue with book 2. Next up is another fantasy, and that's Daughter of the Moongoddess. I just finished this one and I was really in love, at least with the first 60-70% of this book. This is a Chinese mythology retelling about, I think, the goddess of the moon. I'm not familiar entirely with the myth itself. However, this retelling was beautifully done and the story was just really amazing. It was interesting. It flowed really well. It did feel a little bit long at times and a bit slow. And to be quite honest, there was a part after maybe like 2/3, in the last third there was a moment where it started losing a little bit of the good writing. I don't know exactly what happened there, maybe it's just my opinion, but towards the end it got a little bit iffy. However, the world was really well made, the plot was really well written, and was woven into the world really well, and the character was nice to follow and kind of hear her thoughts. Personally, I think that it ended pretty well, and it was tied very well at the end. So it's a duology, so it has another book that's just about to come out. However, I pretty much think that we close off a little bit at the end, so there's one thing that kind of remains open, but altogether it could be read as a standalone sort of. So if you want to read and just the first one, I think you would be satisfied with the ending. I am probably gonna continue on with the second part just because I'm really interested to see exactly what it's gonna focus on. And the last one I'm going to talk about is How High We Go in the Dark. To be completely honest, I am about 70% into it, so I have not finished it. However, I am loving it so much that absolutely nothing that's gonna happen is gonna bring it down to less than 4 stars. So this one is another one that I would highly recommend. This is a sci-fi, however, it's kind of segmented. So you start off and each chapter is a different character, and you start off with a virus being found on the Arctic, and scientists are doing some experiments trying to figure out what it is, and then it gets loose. So the whole world goes into a pandemic. There's a very weird and deadly plague that is released on everyone, and with each chapter you follow a different character and how they're dealing with the pandemic. It's a very interesting book. It's a definite page turner for me. I really love all of the different characters, all of their different experiences. It doesn't focus quite as much on the virus itself as much as it focuses on the people and their reactions, their world, their lives, how they deal with everything, how they deal with the whole pandemic situation, with their personal relationships, how they deal with grief, with loss. It's very layered, and you do get a little bit of time jumps. You don't actually feel how much time has passed because it doesn't really tell you, but it starts, you can feel the start from the pandemic and the escalation, and I'm kind of at a point where we're going forward. So really interesting, really would recommend. I definitely think that this is worth checking it out and looking into it. If you're not sure you want to read about a pandemic, again, I'm gonna mention that it doesn't focus so much on the virus itself. It focuses on personal relationships. However, I am loving it so much that I just have to recommend it, and I have to say that it's definitely worth the read. So that's it for me today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that I gave you a few books to put on your TBRs for new releases, and I hope that you get to read them soon and share your thoughts and experience as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe if you like what you see and would like to see more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!